The big news around the San Francisco 49ers was them signing Mac Jones to a 2-year deal, obviously to come in and be the backup to Brock Purdy. He signed a pretty interesting deal, all things considered, because when you look at the structure of the deal, there is clearly playtime incentives. If he were to play, that deal could be worth more than it was announced for. So that 2-year deal is a $7 million contract with 5 million guaranteed with a max value up to 11.5. So that is where clearly the incentives are in this contract, and it's really not a bad contract, especially if you do think that Mac Jones could come in and play a pivotal role if needed. We saw that, you know, Brock Purdy got hurt against the Packers, and Brandon Allen had to step in, and it just wasn't good enough. And for whatever reason, the 49ers didn't have the same level of faith in Joshua Dobbs, so he really didn't get that opportunity either. But again, I want to talk about how this could potentially have an impact on Brock Purdy's contract negotiation. But before we get into that potential impact, I want to read you my scouting report on Mac Jones from 2021 and just kind of get a sense of what the 49ers are getting here with Mr. Mac Jones. So this is what I said. And this was also clearly after he was announced as being the pick at 3, I believe, by Adam Schefter. So I said Mac Jones has quickly become a hot topic amongst 49er fans as seemingly being the clubhouse leader for the quarterback fans don't want to see on the team. A lot of this has been due to constant narratives being pushed by media that Mac Jones is the pick at 3. It's to the point where there is a clear agenda being pushed behind the scenes. I, for one, have always thought Mac Jones would be someone who would fit Kyle's scheme and could be very successful, but I've always felt he has a capped ceiling. He may have the highest floor out of all the prospects not named Trevor Lawrence, but he also has the lowest ceiling out of the top 5 quarterbacks. Now, here is what Mac Jones is good at. Arguably the best processor in this class. He has the ability to make all the correct reads and keys pre-snap and has the ability to diagnose defenses to ensure he puts his team in a good spot. This is more than half the battle of being a quarterback, so it points to him being able to translate very well to the NFL. He ran a scheme and concepts that were very similar to that of which Kyle Shanahan ran, which is where a lot of the narrative is coming from. He has the ability to be accurate with touch. He works really well in the short to intermediate areas of the field and shows an ability to push the ball downfield. He doesn't have natural velocity or a big arm, which he uses his processing to mitigate. He will not be able to extend plays if initial reads aren't open and he sees quick pressure. He does have a toughness about him. He will stand in the pocket and let it rip, even with pressure in his face. Jones is a first round talent and is worth being a first round pick. However, the limitations as an athlete, the DUI that resulted in a car accident as a 19-year-old should all be things that are taken into consideration and is why he is firmly planted as the 5th best quarterback in this class. So that just gives you an idea of how I viewed Mac Jones heading into this draft class, right? With Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Zach Wilson, all those guys. So sounds a lot like Brock Purdy, doesn't it? And I think we can see that Kyle Shanahan, we all know, wanted Mac Jones to the point where they tried to trade for Mac Jones last season. That came out when we signed him. So why and how could this impact Brock Purdy's negotiation? First, I want to give some context. when a player is still under contract but is amidst a contract negotiation, what they have as leverage is holdouts because they don't have the ability to threaten signing elsewhere in the open market. They don't have like a natural bidding war. The teams aren't bidding against anyone else unless they open up the player to a trade. So the real only leverage that a player has who is in a negotiation while under contract is a holdout. So, for example, Brandon Ayuk in a contract negotiation still had the 5th year option. He was still under contract with the 5th year option available, and he held out because he wanted to get paid, and they were waiting, and that was his leverage. Is I'm not going to show up until I get paid. That also applies to Debo Samuel. When he was entering into the 4th year of his contract in a negotiation, he held out. Same thing applies to Nick Bosa. He held out. Same thing applied to Trent Williams. He had more years on his deal. He held out. Same thing kind of applied to Christian McCaffrey. He had years on his deal. He didn't show up to OTAs, and he is a guy who shows up to everything if given that opportunity. Thankfully, they got it done before mandatory minicamp. But I think you get the point. The leverage here for Brock Purdy in a contract negotiation is holding out. So one of the things that you look at when the 49ers, or at least what I was looking for, was who is going to be the backup quarterback, because the backup quarterback could be the 49ers leverage in this negotiation against a potential holdout. The point being is, if Brock Purdy were to say, we get to OTAs and mandatory minicamp, and he's not signed yet, and they're not close to a deal, and he's not going to hold in, he's going to hold out, the 49ers can say, go ahead, we have a quarterback that we believe on the roster. And that's the leverage right there. That's where it gets interesting, because yes, I do believe Mac Jones is brought in to be the backup quarterback to Brock Purdy, but Brock Purdy isn't signed yet. And so we just got to wait and see what the negotiations ultimately play out to be. But just again, what I continue to mention is how this could impact Brock's negotiation. So the point being is, if Brock were to potentially threaten a holdout, we understand that that would be so detrimental to the 49ers and the 2025 season. But now, if the 49ers feel confident that they have a starting level quarterback on their roster backing up Brock Purdy, who plays very, very similarly to Brock Purdy and has had success. I mean, he was a Pro Bowl quarterback at one point. They could potentially use this Mac Jones signing as leverage against Brock Purdy in a potential holdout. Now, again, I want to be crystal clear. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I just want to present more information than just the surface level kind of thoughts, because if there's anything that I have learned about covering this team, is that contract negotiations are very challenging. And as a result of them being very challenging, there are a lot of variables that are introduced into the situation that one may not have thought about before. So, and that includes potential trades, that includes potential, holdouts, which has been the typical area. But, just like Debo almost got traded, and the 49ers probably would have traded him if they got a good enough offer in return. They didn't. They kept him. They paid him. The 49ers almost traded Brandon Ayuk to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They didn't. They kept him. They paid him after a holdout. The 49ers have had discussions about trading other players that ultimately got paid as well. So I'm not trying to like present this information to make you doubt that Brock is going to get paid, make you believe that Mac Jones is the quarterback of the future, or anything like that. Again, there are ranges of outcomes to every situation, and this is one of them. Regardless of Mac Jones coming in to be the backup quarterback, it also presents as leverage to the 49ers in a potential Brock Purdy holdout. And we're not saying that's where it's going, and we're not saying that's going to happen. We're just saying there are other elements here. So will that occur? Will Brock hold out? I have no idea. I don't expect it. I mean, everything that we continue to hear is, although a deal isn't imminent, well, that was the latest report, things seem to be in good standings. So good. We'll see what ultimately happens. But again, negotiations can be unpredictable. And as you can see, the 49ers roster is in a very interesting spot. They have let a lot of really good players go. There might be a thought process internally that next year could be a wash year. And there also could be a thought process of, well, maybe we force Brock to play on the next year of his deal where he's going to get 5.5 million and change. And we kind of see where it goes from there. The only problem with that is Mac Jones would be making more money than Brock Purdy if that were the case. If they forced Brock to play on his rookie deal, the last year of his rookie deal, his backup quarterback would be making more than him. So again, all of these things are potential ranges of outcomes. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen, but I'm a firm believer of just being able to rationalize all the potentials, because I think it gives a full, broad scope of what could happen. And I think that helps you from being blindsided by something and being taken off guard. Like, oh my gosh, how could this have happened? I never thought that this was even a potential. And so that's kind of where I'm approaching this from. Just because it's a potential outcome doesn't mean it's going to be the outcome. But I do think it is important to really understand that contract negotiations are a challenge. They're difficult, and we just got to see how they're going to play out. So Mac Jones, at minimum, I think is pretty quality backup. He's with Kyle Shanahan. Clearly, Kyle wanted Mac Jones and not Trey Lance. I think that is abundantly clear. They tried to trade for him last year. Why would they try to trade for Mac Jones last year? And now Brock Purdy's in a contract negotiation. So we'll continue to see the whole thing come together. I think the scenario that fans want to see is Brock get paid, Mac Jones be the backup, and we move into the season, attack the draft, hit home runs in the draft, pop some, really plug in some key rookies and reset kind of the financial situation to be able to build a team around Brock. That is the hope, but we'll see if that ultimately happens. I'm curious to know what you guys think about this, because I do believe this video is probably going to be met with some hostility, just based on the notion that I am bringing up. And again, I just want to present the information, and the purpose of presenting said information is so no one gets blindsided. So let me know what you think about this. Am I way off base? Where do you think my view stands? Am I way off in La La Land? Am I too close? Have I been too close to the 49ers, just watching negotiation after negotiation after negotiation? And am I thinking about this incorrectly? Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.